A very good evening, everyone. I hope you all are safe and sound. At this moment, I would like to officially welcome you all to the Survey Research in Social Sciences Research and Publication webinar representing the organizers. The Survey Research in Social Sciences webinar is organized by the International Institute of Knowledge Management, TIIKM, along with GIFT University, Pakistan. The co-organizers are the 7th International Conference on Social Sciences, ICOS 2020, International Virtual Conference on Social Sciences, International Association for Social Sciences and Humanities, and NOIC's online journals, a peer-reviewed open access journal collection which offers publication opportunities in different disciplines. In this time of crisis, where the mobility of individuals are hindered, we took this initiative to disseminate knowledge on research via an online experience. We have a very experienced resource person, Professor Muhammad Kashif, as our resource person. Let me introduce Professor Muhammad Kashif to you all. Professor Muhammad Kashif is currently working with GIFT University, Pakistan, as an assistant professor in the business school. With 15 years of full-time teaching experience within Pakistan and as a visiting professor in several countries, he has published around 53 articles with international journals of repute. Recently, he successfully managed a call for papers with British Food Journal as a guest editor, a 120 years old outlet for scholarly publications. In addition to teaching and research, he is working with Emerald Publishing as brand ambassador and has offered online and on-site training programs in countries such as Malaysia, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and Morocco. He has offered more than 50 training programs as a lead trainer. Academically, the workshops include writing and publishing for journals, qualitative and quantitative research methods, qualitative data analysis, supervision, and teaching in higher ed. As a corporate trainer, he has offered training and consultancy in the field of international branding, customer aggression management, employee volunteerism at work, marketing strategy, and market segmentation. Professor Kashif has worked with world-renowned academicians and researchers in Asia, Europe, and Africa, and brings a diversified experience as an academic, as well as a trainer, consultant for corporate work. These days, he's working over half a dozen of projects with researchers from Russia, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Italy, and USA. Moreover, associate editor for South Asian Journal of Marketing. So without further ado, I invite Professor Kashif to start his delivery, and the participants can raise their questions relevant to the topic afterwards. So you can use the chat option in Zoom app to put your questions forward. Professor Kashif, the platform is over to you now.
Thank you, Yasodhara. Good evening to you, and thank you, Daminda. First of all, thanks to all the team members who invited me and kept me asking us when we can do this activity. And I know that fantastic efforts have been made by all of you. So it's good to be there. Thank you also for introducing me such graciously. You put a lot of pressure on my shoulders. I'll try to meet whatever expectations you have built for this session, hopefully. Today we are going to talk about the survey research, which is one of the very popular research approach that has been used time and time again by the social science researchers, and also sometimes in other sciences this approach was being used. So without going here and there, we will start the discussion and session. I hope, Yasodhara, you can see my screen and all the participants as well.
Yes, Professor, we can see your screen. You can put the presentation. Yeah, now it's perfect. You can start.
Yeah. Thank you, Yasodhara. So today's presentation agenda, it is about the nature and rationale of survey. The logic of keeping this question in mind, that a lot of people, they struggle they adopt this technique to collect data. And I would explain later why I'm calling it a technique, why I'm not calling it a philosophy, why I am not calling it a strategy. So a lot of people, once they opt for this technique, they got confused in their proposal defense, sometimes in their thesis defense. So a lot of MPhil PhD students, based on my experience in several countries, I have seen them very confusing. And even when they want to publish with internationally acclaimed journals, they have no specific reasons as why they opted for the survey research approach. So we will talk about it, the nature and rationale of survey research. So I hope I'll make things easier for them to justify as when they should opt for survey as a research technique. Of course, we will talk about the survey research process, not in fact the process. I mean to say, we will talk about the different phases, the different steps that a researcher should keep in mind while designing up of a survey. The very common mistakes in survey research, based on my experience and also experience of publishing as well as experience of teaching in different universities here and there. So I'll share my experience as what are the common mistakes people do, and then the suggestions to conduct high quality surveys, which are also publishable. I'll present, because as you introduced me, I was an editor as well. So I'll try to speak about as how an editor or an experienced reviewer looks at a survey research paper, a paper which uses survey as an approach or survey as a technique to collect data. So I'll talk about these aspects. Before that, let's talk about human behavior and what is its linkage to survey research. I know a lot of things that we have discussed already in our PhD programs, in our MPhil programs, but these are few snapshots based on some of reflections that I have since last few years. For example, I noticed that human behavior is very complex, and sometimes it changes instantly. The situational events, they crack our personality so deep, and you cannot predict that when a change will occur in a personality. Sometimes you will find individuals, they'll remain as who they are for, let's say, 5 years, 10 years, but one typical incident in their life can really crack and change their personality. So here I wanted to say, let's say I met a person and he or she happened to be my respondent for the survey. No, I would go and request him to fill up the survey. Can I really predict what type of mood he or she is in? Which situational factor or which situational event has actually changed himself? So I need to keep this margin in mind, that there could have been a situational event maybe an hour ago, maybe 10 minutes ago, maybe 1 hour ago, maybe 10 days ago. So I need to keep this margin in my mind while I'm conducting the survey research. And I'll talk about it as how to manage this new and innovative shape of personality, which is caused due to some situational events. Then human memory. Although we have memory, we can recall so many things, but it is connected to the critical incidents. So if you are using such a survey where you want them to recall their memory, maybe you can ask them to retrieve a critical incident in their life. That is also another very important aspect. For example, if I ask you to recall your first day at college, you can recall. Maybe your first day at job, you can recall. The day of your marriage, you can recall. But if I ask you the 10th day of your college, I doubt that 90% might not be able to recall that, right? So this is the impact of the memory, that you need to give them, trigger people their memory through critical incidents. Otherwise, it's very hard to retrieve, and only specific events they can recall. So while designing and executing the survey, you should also keep this thing in mind. One issue can be perceived in a different manner by different people. Talking about, let's say, I gave an example that if there is a supervisor who is always scolding the subordinates, one person would say he is too rigid, other would say he or she abuses me, other might say that yes, he is a blessing or she is a blessing, because due to his scolding or her scolding, I was able to improve myself. So you see, one practice can be perceived very differently from others. This leads us very nicely into the sample size variations, that why we need to have larger samples, because perceptions from one person to the other person, perceptions vary with the passage of time. So we need to keep this thing in mind as well, that we need to club, let's say if I have a data of 10 people, variation will be huge. But if I have a data of 200 people, then I can club that variation into a certain category. This way, we can come up with this strategy to counter the differences in perceptions. And that's why larger sample size are requested in survey research. And finally, we all are influenced by our each other's emotions and actions. Sometimes you don't plan, but you actually do. For example, going to a college party, you might be behaving in a way you never planned. Going to a stadium to watch a cricket match, to watch a football match, you are influenced by the aroma that other people are bringing to you, shaping up your actions. So even in social livelihood, our personalities, our livelihood, our activities, our actions, our thoughts are actually influenced by others. So that also leads us to the social desirability biases, that human beings are influenced by other human beings. I'll discuss in the later slides as how to link these two, how to counter the social desirability biases. I'm just trying to explain that why this happens. Let's now move a step forward. I'll talk about the historical developments in the survey research. Historically speaking, surveys became popular during the Second World War, and army of a particular country, they used to use this technique to collect data, because a lot of people, they tend to gather at places, so it was very easy to collect data from a mass. And in those days, it was not a paper and pencil survey, it was also an interview based survey as well. It was also something based on discussions as well, right? So historically speaking, survey became popular during the Second World War. And issues like civilian and soldier morale, these such issues were discussed. Another issue was consumer demand, because due to bombing, a lot of industries, agriculture got devastated. You cannot do agriculture if you are threatened by the army of an enemy that they can bomb the field. So and it continued for so for some years. So people, the farmers, they could not go to the farms, and they could not do some plantation over there. So consumer demand was a big problem. Wheat, rice, and all those, basic, the foods which belongs to basic necessity was even not available. So consumer demand patterns survey was used to collect data, and also for the effectiveness of bombing, the production capacities as well as the effectiveness of bombing. So historically speaking, that was a time when survey became very popular. And these are the product of the 19th century social reforms, where people said that material is most important. People said that whatever your eye can see is actually the core reality. But that is one form of reality only, philosophically speaking. My eye cannot see everything, but the objects. There are few things which I need to feel. So everything which was associated with eye was called positivist approach. Everything which is visible in front of you, for example, one person slapping to other, so you can say, okay, this man slapped to this man. So you can allegate one person and you can say other person was innocent. But the inner story might be very different. And finally, in 1948 was the era when many countries, developed nations of that time, even Netherlands, Norway, UK, and countries alike, they started funding for survey research centers, their governments, and then the universities, they established the survey research. Up till the era of 1980s, when survey became less popular, and other approaches to conduct social research like qualitative approaches became very popular. Early 80s and 90s was an era which belongs to a lot of qualitative research inventions. Maybe in some other webinars, we might discuss this history in more detail, one of the favorite topics, but I don't want to spend much of time talking about the history or historical development in survey research. We'll move forward. We'll talk about some other complexities of survey research. Yes, the rationale of survey research. You see, a lot of people, I have seen them, they struggle a lot when it comes to their public defense of their dissertation, even writing of research paper, as I discussed earlier, because they don't know. They have opted for survey research due to convenience, maybe due to my friend was doing that. This could be another reason, due to any other factor, which was very easy and convenient to them. But I guess survey research is more than that. We should keep this in mind, that survey is not about ease only. Survey is not only about that I have lesser financial resources, so I should opt for survey. When to, theoretically speaking, when to use survey research? I'll one by one try to explain those reasons. First of all, conceptualization. If my constructs are theoretically designed and theoretically elaborated already, and there are no intervening debates, there are no debates where one construct is actually challenged, the existence of one construct is challenged by the other construct, then I should opt for it. For example, if forgiveness at workplace, if there is one definition and there, I mean, I don't want to say that for every construct there is one definition in the word, no, but there should be one leading definition guiding others to define the construct, maybe in a very different fashion. But if there are debates that no, this definition is not appropriate, this is another definition, this is not appropriate, this is another definition. If there are a lot of contingencies, if there are a lot of conditions, if there are a lot of debates about it, so I guess we should not opt for that type of construct. So if I were you, I will select or opt survey research in cases where all my constructs have straightforward theoretical conceptualization and defined well. Let me give you some examples. Now, spirituality and being religious, religiosity, religiousness, these terminologies are interchangeably used as well. Some believe that spirituality and religion are very different things. Some say no, religiosity, spirituality, actually, religiosity is one part of spirituality. Others say no, being religious is very different and religiosity is very different. Acceptance of oneness is religiosity, some say otherwise, right? So there is a lot of confusion with respect to what is the difference between religiosity and religiousness. So if I'm using this type of construct in my research, it would be very difficult for me to justify in front of the panel. I mean, think about you as a MPhil or PhD student, or an MBA student doing thesis, or an executive MBA student doing an industry project. It is very difficult for us to reconceptualize because that could not be part of our study. So my suggestion here would be to select those constructs and opt for survey research which are theoretically rich and have been defined time and time again. Another reason to opt for survey research is when some operationalization of construct is done. Let me make it more clear. I will try. Conceptualization is about theoretical definition. How would you define a construct? That is conceptualization. Operationalization is how would you measure it? So if you are clear that these 4 questions will measure this construct, that's perfectly fine. If your aim is to seek opinion from a larger audience, as I said, that perceptions vary from one person to the other, perception could be different. So that's why you need a larger set of data in order to generalize and to some extent normalize the data as well. You want to see the variations, but you also want to see as what are the similar points which you can cluster and group into one. So when your aim of study is to seek opinions of a larger audience, like a lot of consumer research, a lot of household surveys are done, that's the reason, because you have a larger audience. You cannot interview 1 million people. Of course, if you wanted to approach them and wanted to study their demographics, as for example, people living in Colombo or people living in Lahore, what are the population dynamics, their different age groups, which age most of the population belongs to, then their education levels, their income levels, their occupation tendencies. So at a larger scale, if your aim is to seek opinions of people at a larger scale, then definitely you should use this survey as a research. If you think that you have such questions and you need brief answers, now there is a point, very thin point to understand here. For example, at one side, surveys are interviews. There you don't need structured answers, and sometimes you don't need structured questions as well. Your interviews will sorry, your interviews will dictate the way you move ahead. On the contrary, when you opt for a quantitative survey, you have these close-ended questions with you, one question with 5 options, and that is on a scale starting from strongly disagree to strongly agree. This is a normal tendency for a scale when we measure. So this way we can actually see that if If my job, or if I'm thinking that I need to have brief answers, then survey as a research I need to use. And finally, if I think there is one more aspect, although this is second last, if I can obtain a reasonable response rate, because survey, conducting a quantitative survey from 50 people doesn't make any sense. Even 100 people does not make any sense. So that also means that I need to collect data maybe from 200, 300, 400, 500, and even more than that. So if I think that I have those social relationships, and I have the ethics approval with me, I have some resources with me, I have time with me, and I need to approach and I can collect data at a reasonable response rate, so you can use survey as a research. And finally, if it is well planned, you can conduct it very quickly, if it is well planned. But if it is not well planned, it will waste a lot of your time and lot of your energy and lot of your financial as well as human resource. So these are the few reasons that why and when you should opt for a survey research technique. Now the stages in the survey process. First stage is initial considerations. This is, I call, the planning stage for a survey. To start with, when you say you are a positivist and you say your reality is fixed and it can be visible by an eye, human eye, doesn't mean you are observing it, but yes, you can see and you can define. I can see, you can see that I'm sitting on a chair, so reality is. And I can see that a lot of people are there online. This is a visible reality. And it is also fixed that we both are here. I'm speaking and you are listening. This is one side of the picture. But other side of the picture could be the emotions that we exchange among us as colleagues from different countries. Another thing could be the relationships. Another thing could be a lot of other phenomena that are beyond the interaction of the eye. Anyway, if you are a positivist, you will say that reality is fixed, and deductive approach you will use because you need an objective evidence in order to formulate hypothesis. Conclusively, the first stage of survey research is to formulate hypothesis. And I hope you are clear in that how to formulate hypothesis. Of course, go back to two sort of phenomena. At one side, you need to know the social phenomena. Other side, you need to know the literature that has been already published, and then connect the two. This is how you will try to formulate a hypothesis. Then what type of survey I'm going to administer? And you see, every type of survey has different advantages and disadvantages. There are mail surveys, then there are face-to-face surveys, there are telephonic surveys, and these days people are using some web-based online surveys as well. So I'm not going digging deep into the details of which survey technique among these available is best. All these have advantages and disadvantages. If someone from you will ask, I will try to elaborate on it. But I need to decide what type of survey it is going to be, or either it is a combination of the two. Then I need to write up the survey questions. I call them items as well, sometimes when I'm going for analysis. Either I need to adopt it or formulate the new one. I can adopt if the survey has already been tested, if those items have been tested time and time again. But if I think that my context is different than the previous context where the same items were tested, I can opt for new. I can go for questionnaire development. I can also go for scale development. These are not our topics. By the way, you need to understand that we need to write the survey items. Then decide on the response categories. Open-ended, if you want to do an interview, go for open-ended. On the other side, close-ended, of course, you will design a quantitative survey and you will try to figure out, as you will write one question and there will be option and respondent can easily tick one of the options. Please get it proofread by the expert. That I call the ecological or environmental validity, because as I said, abusive scolding a subordinate might be considered very appropriate in countries such as Pakistan and India, because even Sri Lanka and all other Asian countries where elders are respected high and they are regarded as high, while the juniors are supposed to obey them. Juniors are supposed to listen to them carefully. Juniors are supposed to not to speak in front of them, right? But on the contrary, in some other nations where there is no social hierarchy, people cannot scold each other. People cannot talk in this manner to each other. So if you are using such a construct, that was mired in a very different context, if you believe. and your context is very different. Let's say you collected data previously, some researchers collected data from Sri Lanka. Now you wanted to generalize it to, you want to collect data either from Bangladesh, India, Bhutan, Pakistan. Come on, these are the similar type of countries on Hofstede's cultural dimensions. Although there are differences, there are religious differences, there are identity differences that we need to accept and respect. But culturally speaking, as per Hofstede, I'm saying, because the regional philosophers, they have given this reason that yes, there are huge differences. But based on Hofstede, he says that a lot of Asian countries are collectivist in nature. A lot of Asian countries, the family system is very strong. So let's say if there was a survey in Sri Lanka, no, I want to operationalize the same in Pakistan. To me, the environment is same. But if a study was conducted in Netherlands, now I'm going to implement it in Sri Lanka. Both countries are very different. So I need to proofread my questionnaire by language expert. I need to see as how these words will be perceived by the countrymen here, because previously this could have been very different. Then design is another element. I need to think about it. Either I need to opt for a cross-sectional design, which is one-shot data, or time lag, which is either it is cross-sectional, but data is collected at different time intervals, or I need to go for longitudinal approach, which is collecting data in different time intervals and stopping it like stage one, collecting data. Then after maybe a lot of studies in HR, they do that. They provide trainings to human resource before training, and then after 6 months from similar people after the training. So this is how they judge as what is the level of training effectiveness. Same applies to other functional areas as well. Then there is another complexity. Data should be single source or multiple source. By that I mean that single source means that I am relying only on survey. Okay. Multiple source means that it is not a survey. It is also the interview. It is also company records. It is also based on the historical developments that are coming up in a social phenomena, about a social phenomena. So by single source, I mean that I'm relying on one technique to collect data. Then it can be multiple layer data as well in organizations. For example, in the household, collecting data from grandparents, parents, and children. To me, these are three layers. In organization, from general manager, manager, and subordinate. Again, this is called multi-level data. So I need to define on all these considerations before actually administrating a survey. Pilot test the survey. Stage one, you need to think about that, because you need to see either the participants, are they comfortable? Are they understanding the language? What is my practice here? Usually when I ask them to fill up the survey, I also ask them, how are they feeling about the survey? What do they believe that is it the issue that is really important in their lives? Is it something that is very near to them? What are their general comments over the survey? I know that in implicit societies, everyone might, if they are your friends, they'll say, fantastic. It will be done in a wonderful manner. That is really good. But on the contrary, if you ask them, if you critically observe, are they at ease? How much time they are spending to fill it up? Are they paying concentration to that? Is it so long? No. So I need to concentrate on all these softer domains of survey, I would call it. So for that reasons, I need to pilot test. This was a stage one, the initial considerations. I started from a philosophy, ended up with planning for a pilot survey. Then the design considerations. Who is the target population for the survey? Let's say frontliners. Frontliners are those people who are either working in banking, healthcare, telecom sectors. They are the ones who are meeting with every customer, like security guard is a frontliner. People sitting on the front desk are frontliners. So let's say my population for the survey is frontliner. Also, I need to define on the sampling frame. Sampling frame is a chunk of the population from where I will draw my sample. So let's say the population was frontliners. The sample can come from frontline banking employees. Then what should be the sample size? That is a statistical problem and issue that should be discussed in some other webinars. Although there are non-statistical measures that are being used, sometimes journals ask about them, sometimes they don't. So it depends where you wanted to get your article published, and also it depends which university you actually are studying, how sophisticated and complex they are when it comes to selection of techniques, and when it comes to selection of other manners when it comes to research. So sometimes they ask you, and sometimes they do not ask you. But high quality journals like in Association of Business School and Australian Business Deans Council, all those journals, even Web of Science, they might ask you that how you decided on your sample size. So there are few statistical techniques that we should use when it comes to sample size. Then I need to approach a strategy, how I will approach the people. You need to chalk out a plan. Either you will go and meet them in their offices. Now, look at, imagine an office setting. If I'm working in an office, since I'm working from home, so I'm sitting alone. But if I'm working from my office, I'm not sitting alone. There are three, four, five people sitting around me, and they are my friends. So if you will give me the questionnaire, how come I will stop myself and I will not discuss it with my friends on right and friends on left? So in an office setting, particularly, even in university setting, if you approach students to fill up the questionnaire, even in household, if you want to collect data from chief income earner, the one who is earning income for the household, if you want to survey that person, how would you stop him not influenced by others? That I meant for managing the social desirability. Because as I said in the start, people are influenced by actions and emotions of others. And that is a very difficult aspect to decide on, because in cultures such as Pakistan, Sri Lanka, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, it is considered inappropriate to say that please don't discuss. I mean, you as a researcher, your job, you don't have an authority over respondents. So sometimes I might be serving a CEO. Sometimes I might be serving those people who are old age people. So I have no authority on them. How come I will ask them to not to do that and not to do that? Right? So I need to decide on a strategy as how to manage this social bias. And please seek ethical approvals. There is a long list of journals now that they will ask you to provide the ethics approval from your university. And also before collecting data, you need to seek approvals. I'm associated with two universities. At Gift University in Pakistan, I am teaching, and at Colombo University, I am teaching, and also I am enrolled there in a postgraduate degree. Both the universities, there is a tendency that they'll ask you that have you really sought ethics approval, and they are very good. Two of them are very good in that. So I want this to happen. Although it will take time, it will sometimes it will suppress you, but this is a very good approach, because once I have the ethics approval with me, I can easily show it to the people. I can easily seek approvals. It will enhance your credibility and also the credibility of your institute. Then stage 3, this is administration of survey. Now what you will do, you will counter check the plan. Once you are collecting the data, this is administration, means you are now in the field, you are collecting the data. Please keep on checking about the time, keep on checking about the resources, because those are scarce as per few. But I'm not a believer on that. Resources are unlimited. Sometimes we only have that rigid and fixed and smaller eyes to look at them. But approaching respondents and counter checking the plan is first thing to do. Then managing the social biases. You need to consider this phenomena that survey can be a destructive impact on your research if social biases are not managed. I'll share a few techniques as how to manage that. Please carefully sort out completely versus partially filled questionnaires. That you need to decide as well. When you will collect data, you need to nicely look at the questionnaire, the survey forms. Has data been filled? Every question been answered in the correct manner? So that's the way you need to sort out. Sometimes you will keep the other, you will call them non-response error. Sometimes there are few surveys which are really blank. People might deny or people might not be willing to respond. So you need to sort out in this way. How many people actually responded, filled up in complete sense? How many of respondents they partially filled? How many denied? Maybe these three categories you need to keep this in mind. Then record the data. And also please keep a record as what percentage of respondents you, let's say you approach 500 people and you received 350 forms, which means a response rate of, let's say, 70%. But that is not the realized sample. From the 350 forms, there might be 300 or 250 forms which are usable, 100 might not be usable. So this way you need to realize that your response rate was 70%, but your realized sample was 250 respondents, because rest of the forms you actually kept as a record with you. Maybe after the study you will go back and reflect as why people denied, what was the reason, were the questions tricky, were the questions of that were just like a social taboo, were the questions were written in so much complex language, what was the reason? Maybe you can discuss again with the language expert. Now moving ahead, there are few sources which cause error in survey-based studies. For example, first, error in respondent selection. This is the first error chance in your survey. For example, sampling errors. And I see a lot of people using non-probability sampling method, people telling that they are using convenience sampling method. Let's suppose I wanted to interview nurses, those who have some experience of psychological training. Now, if I go to a hospital and I conveniently select nurses, this will be a sampling error, because my aim is to survey those nurses who received a psychological training. So using a non-probability sampling can really vanish the spirit of your study. You need to keep this thing in mind. Another is coverage error. Sometimes you say, as taking this example ahead, this nurses example, if I wanted to say that, okay, I want to interview or I want to survey nurses who received psychological training. And in that, I omit, sometimes I will omit a lot of people who can provide me an insight into nursing. I need to be mindful as why I kept this criteria, because only nurses who were selected who received some psychological training. There might be nurses who provided psychological training. They might not have received it. So isn't it like that sometimes due to coverage, I will miss a huge and a very important chunk of the population that I need to reconsider, and I need to remain mindful in that. Then there are non-respondent people, and these we call the non-response error. For example, you gave a questionnaire to person and he or she denied to answer, refuses to answer. You just consider it one, because you approached one person as per the criteria. Keep this questionnaire with you, think and reflect why he or she, and maybe at a future time you can approach the person again and may silently ask him or her, be good friends and ask him or her why you denied, what was the reason. If there are some study based reasons, those will be a real insight for you for your future research. Another set of error which can come from responding to survey questions. For example, non-response error, particularly about a one research question. You need to keep on checking once you record the data. One issue that happens with us, that we collect data and then we record it. For example, now I have a sample, I have a survey of 350 people with me. Now I will start collecting the data, recording the data. What will happen? Let's say 80% of questions, question number 11 of the survey was missed by the respondents. Question number 11. Now, what insight do I have? Let's say if I conducted 50 surveys I completed, and there are 20 people who missed question number 11. Don't you think I can reflect back? I can talk either to my supervisor, either talk to my research who are the seniors, either talk to someone who is a language expert. Maybe if that question is causing a trouble, I can really, even during the survey, there is not that much rigidity, I can manage it somehow. Then there are measurement errors. Sometimes the respondents, they don't listen carefully. And finally, there are some measurement errors caused by the interview themselves. Sometimes I, as an interviewer, someone who is conducting an interview or sharing a survey form, is talking something else. I have seen people coming to universities for collecting data, and here they are standing with their friends and asking their friends to distribute this survey to others. Come on, this is your research. Okay, take care of your baby, take care of your research. It's not like that I give it to a mass that, okay, fill it up and I'll come after 5 minutes. That's an approach that has been used, but please don't do that. If I were you, I will go from one person to the other person and to the other person. My students who are attending this webinar today, they might be familiar that when I handed over the survey, I do it myself. I took the questionnaire to them one by one, and of course, the topic is not about the efficiency of the teacher. Otherwise, this is another, furious fault that I will do because I'm asking about my own self. The students, they are not. I'm not the right resource to do that. Maybe I should request someone else to collect data about my teaching efficiency or my teaching effectiveness. So these things we need to again keep in mind when it comes to responding to survey questions. Then survey administration errors. Once you have collected the data, sometimes the mistakes occur during data cleaning, even sometimes recording the data. There are some problems. We miss sometimes instead of 5, it is written as 15. Sometimes instead of 3, it is written as 03 or 30. So these type of errors can also occur, which can sometimes in a shorter run can make you worried. Then more defects. I have seen a lot of people on Facebook these days. They say that they are conducting this survey, and please help us in filling out this form. If it is not in your objectives, if you are not collecting data as per your methodology, you are at fault. Please don't do that. Responding to a Facebook questionnaire versus filling up a questionnaire while sitting in my office, which is a very natural setting for me as an employee, I guess both situations are very different and will definitely affect the normality of my data when I will run the analysis. Then it will cause troubles. So mode effects, if you ask me, I should not go for multiple modes because if you will email me the questionnaire, I might be leaning back in my room surrounded by the children, mashallah, and they might be disturbing me or they might be playing around me. They might be just taking my attention away from the survey. On the office, I am sitting alone and I can concentrate on the study. So mode effects sometimes really cause trouble to you when it comes to data. And finally, the comparability errors. There is a fallacy which I thought that I should discuss: cross-national versus cross-cultural. A lot of people commit that. Now, by cross-national, we mean that we are collecting data across nations, which are culturally the same. Pakistan, Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, these are according to Hofstede dimensions. These are culturally the same. So this will be called cross-national. On the contrary, if I collect data from UK versus Australia versus Pakistan or Sri Lanka, now then I can say that this is cross-cultural because the culture of the three nations are very different to each other. So sometimes there is a comparability error as well when it comes to data analysis. Sometimes we underestimate and sometimes we overestimate the power that something is going to happen. So these are few sources of error that we need to keep in mind. Now, honesty is yet another issue in survey research with regard to sensitive topics. If you ask people, they might say that they never committed a crime, generally speaking. If you ask them, have you ever robbed anything? What would be the probable answer? No, never. You told a lie? No. If you ask people that someone like you ever used a drug, what is the probable answer? No, right? So this, I call this angel phenomena, this angelistic phenomena. Honesty is compromised when it comes to survey research because a lot of topics are actually sensitive topics. Look at the list. Just spend a minute there. I'll explain. So if you see, every second and down, our topics are very sensitive in nature. Education is one of the list of this. I took from the book Social Research Methods by Newman, so you can counter check these the list. In the new edition, this I took from the new edition, but probably this year there will be another edition, so they might change the percentage. Anyways, to start with masturbation, sexual intercourse, usage of hashish, the drugs, petting and kissing, getting drunk, income, gambling, drinking, and likewise. Okay, so these are the sensitive topics, and honesty is a big issue. Honesty is, you keep honesty aside, even responding to the question is a big issue. If you ask people, have you ever watched a porn movie? What would be the probable answer? Of course, no. No. So such type of controversial issues are very important to investigate, but at the same time, honesty, you will get a bipolar type of, sometimes your bell shape will be either right curved or left curved, but you need a very different set of answers when it comes to conduct of research. Well, let's see. I have few suggestions here as well as how to make sure that respondents are bit honest with you. Although they are human beings, they will try to hide behind the cards, right? They are not ducks. But let's see as how honesty in survey research can be ensured. For example, use your reputation as a researcher. If your body says, I'm a good secret keeper, hence your privacy is completely assured. If your body language is like that, then you can collect data. This is one thing. And then one another observation. My informal discussions with my friends will dictate my reputation, who I am. Our grapevine, our informal discussions will dictate we as persons. Because let's say if I'm standing at a party, it's let's say graduation party or a dinner, I'm standing with my friends and I'm cracking few jokes. Now there are a lot of people here and there around me. They are listening to me. In a university graduation ceremony, in a university annual dinner, lot of people are, I'm surrounded by a lot of people. When I'm talking to other person, they are listening to me as well. So this is how with the passage of time, the way you use Facebook, the topics you discuss, your comments, your usage of social media, your usage of all other social media modes will dictate who you are, your reputation. So if your reputation is someone who is a decent person, who is a good secret keeper, who will not laugh if I will start discussing the drug abuse in front of him. If would like to share some horrible story of the childhood, and a person is sure that, okay, if I'll share with him, he will not laugh at me, then they will be ready to talk about the sensitive topics. This about the personality of the researcher. This is one suggestion. You can use telephonic, I call it hiding behind the wall. You can use a telephonic approach, sometimes a Delphi technique also. Maybe you can request them to write an essay about your experiences. For example, if you want to ask that, if you want to ask from a doctor that how was your experience of treating COVID patients? So maybe you can, if you think that on face of it, they might tell some horrible stories because they have seen people dying in front of them. So if you think that the topic is of that nature, that might take away others' attention as well. So maybe you can ask them to write down something. Or if you want to talk about child abuse, women abuse also, so maybe you can ask them to write a letter and sharing their experiences. Another technique is ask in a third person manner. For example, as a question, why do people watch X-rated movies? No, I'm not asking why you watch X-rated movie. I'm asking why do people watch X-rated movies? So maybe then other person might feel a bit comfortable in answering to those questions, while at the same time, he or she might himself or herself be watching the porn. But these techniques we need to keep in mind in order to obtain some usable data. Then again, if you're not a senior researcher, and if you don't have experience in conducting interviews and opting for this culturally and socially sensitive topics via using survey technique, then don't go for this last technique. Take a longer route. Sometimes you will be lost in your own questions. Okay, so that thing you also need to keep in mind. The technique is ask basic questions, familiarize, and with the passage of time, then you will go to the areas you wanted to actually explore. Now, there are few challenges and solutions for high quality survey research, which I am going to talk about by keeping the time in mind as well. Uh, yes. So there are few common mistakes like management of a systematic bias. And by systematic bias, I mean that social desirability bias. People don't want to discuss the aspect of their personal life that I need to understand, right? So in this regard, the social desirability you need to manage. They might not be talking about abuse, gambling, drinking, I said masturbation, usage of drugs, and etc. etc. So you need to keep this thing in mind. And how to manage is a real question, because sometimes the systematic bias or the social desirability bias, people wanted to behave like angels. And it is not their fault. It is our fault as researchers. We are not approaching them in the right and appropriate manner. So it might hamper the measurement of constructs. This is one problem. Another is that the estimation of a probable impact of variable one on the other might go up or down. And finally, there might not be a relationship that exists, but it is present due to this type of response rate. Now, few suggestions. How to manage the systematic bias. Privacy and anonymity of respondents should be ensured. This is first thing. Seriousness and credibility of researcher. You see, if I'm asking about child abuse and I'm laughing during the interviews, come on, this is shameful. If I am talking about a murder case and I'm laughing and I'm non-serious, so I don't have this right to even conduct the study. Data collection is something else. So seriousness and credibility of the researcher is very important when it comes to management of social biases. Then social visibility of a response. As I narrated an example, let's say you came to me and I'm sitting in my office, and let's suppose my boss is sitting right to me, okay, and a friend is sitting here, and I know that we all three have very close relationship among us. Now the survey which you are conducting is actually about abusive supervision, and my boss can actually look at the responses that I fill. What do you think? What would I respond? My boss abuses me? Of course, no. I'll say my boss is an angel. So social visibility of a response. Now, technique is how to manage it. For example, what I usually do, it took a lot of time, although, but I was able to manage the social visibility during the lunch break. I approached few bankers. They were talking to each other. So I requested the manager to allocate a corner where every person can come. I will hand over the questionnaire to him or her, and then they can fill up the questionnaire. This is one technique to do it, right? So this way you can manage the social visibility of a response. Then questions should circle around your own research questions. When you're doing qualitative research, sometimes you go here and there. And this really happens with early career researchers. But when it comes to as you gain more and more experience, your questions are actually about your research questions. Please use different measurement sources. Telephonic interview, it could be face-to-face interview. But as I said, face-to-face interview versus a Facebook data are two very different things. Wording of survey should not induce impression management. I will elaborate on that during question and answer session. Now, another bias can come from common method bias, and that bias occurs when you use only one single method. Let's say you collected data from people about their perceptions. This is what we call the self-reported data. Okay, that sometimes can inflate or deflate the relationship between the two variables. Now, in order to manage, what will be the problem? It can overestimate. Sometimes it will say that the regression score between variable A and B is 0.7. Why this is happening? Because because of the existence of common method bias, because of the mood effects that people have during a certain period of time. Common method is that I'm using one method to approach respondents and one short data I'm collecting. Now, what are the solutions? How to manage it? Multiset data. Data can come from supervisors, can come from subordinates. Data can come from customers, from suppliers also. Data can come from husband and wife and also from their children, also from the in-laws. This is multi-set data. This way I can tackle the common method bias. Another is data in multiple times to counter modes. As I explained earlier, people remain in their modes due to situational factors. Weather could be a situational factor. This heat could be a situational factor. If someone has just came out of a meeting, this could be a situational factor, right? So you need to, that's why in survey research it is said that you need to conduct the interview or you need to collect the data via survey forms when people are in their naturalistic settings. Item wording should be bias free and the authority, age, gender should not be mentioned if only if important. I mean, it can be part of the demographs, but in wording, it should not be given such a directional statement. For example, we should not say that women should not have this authority. What is your opinion about that? Don't do that. If you are conducting an interview, please take it open-ended. For example, you can ask, what is your opinion of gender and authority? No, let the respondent talk about it instead of you mentioning it. And don't talk about race also. Don't be so much cynical about the religion as well in countries where we are living, which are called highly religious countries. I mean, unnecessarily poking into someone's religion might devastate not only the research, but also your own relationship and ultimately your reputation. And finally, then there are biases in sampling. That the sample which I selected for my study was not the appropriate sample. For example, when researchers use a convenience sampling technique, this thing happens. Sometimes sample is too small, you cannot generalize. Sometimes it is too big. The data will be, normalized more than it should be, because after a certain sample size, your data, goes to normality. You need that variation actually. That's why in smart PLS, I have seen a sample size of close to 200 respondents also in smart PLS based studies. And one of the conditions that you can use smart PLS if you have a small sample size. So you need to keep these, remain mindful and keep these discussions, these conditions in mind. Another is prestige bias, and that I have used, people use a lot. Sometimes they feel overpride about the institution they belong to. So they would say that data was collected when they will report or they will present, they will say data was collected from one of the highly prestigious universities in Asia. You don't need to say that. Data is data, either coming from a low category university, either coming from a high category university. You cannot say that I collected data from one of the top multinational companies in the world. No. This way you are trying to bias the opinion of others. And scientifically, this is not appropriate. Although people might get influenced by it, that is also one side of it. But please don't do that. Then suggestions as how to remove this sampling bias from your study. Representativeness. Please sit back, think, reflect, and decide. Either the sample which you have opted for represents your population, number one. Number two, the aim of the study and the sample you selected, is there any relationship between the two? If yes, then the sample is representative. Use of statistical techniques, someone was asking about the statistical formulas. The scope of the webinar is, it is the scope of the webinar that I start discussing the statistics, although one of the subjects which is very close to my heart, but then we will, take ourselves away from the aims and core discussion of this webinar. So I'm not going to discuss about statistics, maybe in upcoming webinars, probably we can talk about it, but yes, there are formulas which are used in order to decide on a sample size. Then please use probability sampling, either it can be cluster sampling, quota sampling. Use those probability sampling methods. Those are much better comparable to non-probability sampling. Now there is a survey research checkbox, which I will not explain in detail because I have already spoken about it. Maybe you can have a nice look at it. There are 10 things. Just look at it. I'll skip the discussion over here. To start with sampling frame, the dates you conducted the survey, population, sample size, sample selection methods, items, survey method, response rate, organizations you collected data, and the manner you managed these social biases. Now moving to the final part of my presentation. Based on my editorial experience with British Food Journal, and also now I'm working with another journal as an editor, I forgot to update to sometimes they are unable to differentiate between a sample and a here. Now I need to, if it is important, I need to make a context of it. That also means I need to discuss. That also means that I need to discuss as how this context is important, how this is a context. Context is always more than a sample. A sample is that I collected data from bankers, but if I say that banking has these issues, which should be dealt by this research approach, or which should be dealt by some sort of theoretical discussions which are there, some theoretical gaps which are context based, which are into banking sector or into healthcare sector, then more probably I am talking about it as a context. So uh, generally speaking, sample is from where I collected data, and context can be my contribution. Context can be an environment which needs my scholarly contribution and scholarly attention. So I need to differentiate the two, sample and context. Sample is part of methods, context, its debates are part of literature review also and introduction also. Then the operationalization of Myers is really confusing. People tend to adopt the scales, but they don't give reasons. In a thesis dissertation, that is most important. Even in a study, that is equally important, that the operationalization should be discussed as why we are adopting a scale. Let's say Zhang et al., we adopted a scale from that, or any other social scientist, we adopted their scales. So do we have such reasons? Maybe reliability scores, alpha scores of the previous survey, we can take help from that. The previous studies, alpha scores were really high. You can adopt those skills. This is one reason. Another could be popularity. Another could be research aims are same, and so many other reasons as well. Contribution is not stated clearly. If you ask from me to start with, the introduction section should end up, to start with, you should introduce your whole framework. You can call it your, not the conceptual framework in fact, but your theoretical framework, as what is your first construct leading to the second, third, fourth, and fifth. So whatever is important to you, maybe you can start your story from there and then highlight the all other constructs, introduce one by one in the form of a story. This is first stage. Then discuss about the contributions of study. You should clearly mention first gap of this study is to collaborate or is to contribute relationship A and X. This has discussed earlier, but you will discuss in this manner. So this is a contribution. So in introduction section, don't leave any gap. Discuss those gaps, highlight those gaps, and tell the participants, tell the readers that yes, your study is making a theoretical or as well as contextual contribution. Sometimes we undersell our own research when we say that child labor is an issue in Sri Lanka. Come on, it's not a Sri Lankan issue, it's a Pakistani issue as well. It's an issue, might be in Bhutan, Nepal also. It might be an issue in African countries also. So why I'm too narrow? The problem is, sometimes when you say like that child labor is an issue in Sri Lanka, you make the whole context of Sri Lanka. And when you start publishing or start submitting your paper to international journals, tell me why they would be interested in a Sri Lankan issue. Their readership is an international audience. They are from so many other countries. So why they should care about Sri Lanka as a context? That is an important point to ponder upon. And finally, a lot of literature is written in the descriptive form, where it is said that Mr. A 1989, then leading Mr. B in 2020, he or she said that A leads to B. But come on, this is literature review, means analysis of literature. So you need to come up with some reasons as what are those connecting points, why A leads to B, what are the gaps highlighted there. This is one research I cited, then the second, then the third, then the fourth, and so on. So your literature review should talk to the reader, in fact. What happened is more important, but why happened is most important. And your gap will always arise from the why. Demographs are sometimes described in a inappropriate manner, I would say. Sometimes it is written, sometimes it is a requirement of the journal also that you list down a nice table of demographs. You can say 50% were males, 50% were females. You can say 10% were postgraduate, 30% were graduate students, 20% was this. If your part of your aim is not to elaborate on these variables, then it's okay. Otherwise, my suggestion would be that kindly at least link the demograph with the population of your country. Is there any connection? Or if not the population of the country, please try to link those with the population of your study. Let's say I gave an example of frontliners, and now my data says that 70% of frontliners were males. Probably there is a link. There is a link. Or if my data says that 80% of frontline employees in banking sector, they are educated people, probably there is a link. So I need to elaborate on that point. And finally is the remedies which were taken, non-statistical remedies which were taken during the survey. I need to elaborate on that. And thank you very much. This is all from my side. In case there are questions, I would be happy to address. Thank you for listening to me.
Well, thank you, Professor Kashif. So I think I had a lot of compliments in the chat also. So we have quite a number of questions in the Q&A section. So others also can put forward their questions regarding the session. What do you want to know? But please limit your questions to the topics that we discussed. So let me some questions. So,
Yasudra, you also have a list of questions with me. If you want me to.
Yes, you can. You can. You can pick the questions and provide your feedback.
Okay. There is Sri Lankan names are quite longer names. That is one observation, Yasudra. Sources, the first question is the sources of survey research. Now, I'm not familiar with this question, the sources of survey research. I don't know what you are trying to ask. If you're trying to ask the types of survey, I discussed that there can be surveys like mail surveys, and there can be surveys like telephonic surveys. Then the survey can also be qualitative in nature, a survey interview, and can also be quantitative in nature when we are trying to do some analysis. So this is how it goes. Another question is when we are using structure type questions, can we obtain the real outcome? Example perceptions, so how we can decide them most appropriate. Rasika is asking this question. Rasika, my answer to this question would be, yes, my answer would be that, when you decide on quantitative research, as I said, that it belongs to positivist tradition, right? Which means reality is fixed, one. Then we used deductive approach. That also means that reality is objective in nature. So this way, when we fixed some things, we can also say that yes, we can have these close-ended questions. When the reality is fixed, we can fix the questions type as well because reality is fixed. We are rigid as quantitative researchers. On the contrary, if you want to discover a phenomena in depth, I guess there is no substitute to qualitative research in the world. but that requires a lot of concentration and that requires a lot of time, lot of patience. Shahab Siddiqui, sir, is there any exact number of sample size which can be selected while using survey research? No, not really. It depends upon so many factors. Ecological validity, Rasika is again asking. Somewhat new undergraduates and postgraduate too, is it a must have? You know, Rasika, these are the sophistications. These are the points which if you do, you will improve the quality of your survey. You can easily justify that. So take it this way. What platforms? Google Forms are usually, Mr. Shang, uh, Google platforms are usually used to share the questionnaire with people, and they are happy to answer. And then there are, if I can correctly recall, there are few website called Tricks, and there are few as well where you can distribute the survey and they will get it done because they have consumer panels with them. Mr. Arun Prem, good evening, Kashif. Yes, thank you. Good evening. The session, thank you. My question is in case of primary data using online questionnaire, is there a higher chance of respondent answering a question generally, physical face-to-face? Yes, Mr. Prem, I would say yes, because in our societies, face-to-face saying no is difficult. I can say you know via an email, but it's very hard for me to say you know telephonically. And more harder for me to say you know I cannot fill the form in a face-to-face interaction. So please, a good researcher is also a good student of the society as well. Answering particularly to your question, if you ask from me the tendency to people reject the forms, is this cultural reason also, and secondly lack of security issues also. You don't know who is collecting the data. Sometimes, not sometimes, even daily basis, I delete a lot of emails. I don't know from where they are coming from, and it is that email is not written to me only. That email is actually written to a mass. They purchased a mass account, let's say 500 or 600 or more than that, even up to 5,000 people, and they drafted that email to a standard email to everyone. No, why I should trust the person to whom I am trying to respond, right? So I need to keep this thing in mind as well. Dr. Fozia, what is actually way of determining the sample size? Someone said that we can confirm factor analysis by 5-10 ratio. 10% excessive population sample size. Dr. Fozia, it varies from who your supervisor is, first of all. And secondly, it also varies how cruel versus how polite your uh, panelists are. And also same applies to your journals. Few journals, few panelists, few supervisors, they are very scientific. So they will ask you the reasons. For example, if you say 5-10 ratio, do you have a reason for 5-10 ratio? If you have, I would say okay, but I will not follow this approach. I will, as I said, that it is a problem of statistics. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to discuss it here. Mushtaq Malik, response rate will be counted based on return questionnaire or based on usable questionnaires? Based on, Mushtaq, based on people you approached. During COVID days, online questionnaire will be tool for researchers. Could you suggest some good online primary data collection tools? Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, yes, you can use that. Shehzadi Hina, is it essential for a researcher to adopt triangulation in survey? Hina, it can be a good approach. If you can use it, you are actually, triangulation means that you are bringing a lot of trust into your study. Now, as an evaluator, I will have a lot of trust in your study if you are using a triangulated approach in a survey. But if you are collecting, let's say from one particular method, if you are using this data, even then it's okay if you can justify, but bringing data from multiple sources will definitely enrich the survey. Then Zohaib Hassan, how to prevent the result from biased responses? The result, Hassan Sai, I'm sorry, this is not our topic, the results of the study. Can we use smart PLS for larger sample size? Please share reference as well. Muhammad Asim. Reference, I would say that Hire et al, their book into this smart PLS, they talk about the sample size and also few criticism in Journal of organizational research methods, Mohammad Asim, I would recommend to you to please read the criticism on smart PLS. That will enlighten you definitely. Mariam Zohra, why there is no consensus on research methodology, especially research in Pakistan social sciences research community? Zohra, there is no consensus in social sciences all across the world. Positivism is one approach, interpretivism is another, socialism is another, realism is another, and feminism is another, and so many other philosophies exist in social sciences, right? So there is no one particular methodology which you can use to conduct your study. You need to combine a lot of things. But I would ask you to read the research onion, which is discussed by Saunders in book. I guess the exact title was Research for Business Students, probably something like that. Mark Saunders' book, where research onion is discussed. So, Mariam Zohra, you can definitely consult that book. Rehana Naheed, in research, we can only focus on one country sometimes, and how will generalize a problem to other countries? You're right, we focus on one country, but that country is, see, this country might be similar. When you say, Rehana, when you say developed countries, don't you think you have a list of developed countries? Right. When you say Muslim countries, you have a list. When you say collectivist countries, again, you have a list. So that's why we can stretch the problem and don't try to underestimate. It's not about generalizing the problem. I'm not saying that. It's about elaborating on the problem. Does sector matter for adoption or adaptation of scale? Yasir Rasool, I need a few hours to comment on it actually. Please, if you in next comments, if you can elaborate a bit further, I would definitely talk about it. Can you please share Sarkashif email address? Yes, I will share. Can we ask question through voice? Not recommended, Yasir. Can you please elaborate on the steps to be followed in conducting a preliminary survey? I elaborated Rashmi Vijayasinghe. I elaborated the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Stage 1 was initial consideration and then move on. Can we use interview in quantitative research? Maham. Not recommended. It's my opinion. What if those sensitive questions survey are really needed to be asked under the phenomena? You see, Mr. Lirio, I gave you some techniques. You are from Philippines. Thank you. I gave you some techniques as how to move ahead with that. So it's not always that the data for sensitive topics will not be shared by the respondents. It can be, you can rephrase, as you said, you can take a longer route, but your credibility will matter a lot. Your seriousness during the survey will also matter a lot. Let's say if you go to an old house and ask an old person why you are here, and that after 5 minutes that person started crying with tears. Now, if your emotions are not matching with the emotion of the respondents, you cannot collect further data. He or she will keep him or her back into the corner because he or she will feel that you are not with him or her. Your emotions are different. His or her emotions are different. Unless until in an interview, the emotions coincide, we cannot collect data. Miss or Mr. Arense, thank you. International Journal. Okay, Rida Asim, can you please repeat how to link description of demographics to relevance of the study? Rida, for example, from Pakistan, if you collect data from bankers and you found that 70% of the staff was male, so don't you think this is exactly Pakistan? Lot of people, lot of males work, lot of females do not work. So maybe this way you can get connected with the data. And whatever I am saying has some other side of the story as well. It is not the complete picture, I said. How to write a literature review? I'm sorry, this is not the topic. If the survey is qualitative, how to do the probing? Mr. Rabiul Awal Chaudhry. If the survey is qualitative, you see, when you do the qualitative survey, you need to have two types of questions. One, your primary questions. Second, your probing questions. And probing questions are the expected responses. And these are not based on your own reflection, but also based on the literature that you read, also with the discussions that you had with your senior colleagues and supervisors. So these are based on that. Okay, Javed Akhtar is asking, some respondents do not care about filling of questionnaire even without reading or understanding. How we can deal with such issues? Give them some reward, approach them in a time they are free, keep on requesting them. Tell them it is a matter of life and death for you. There is no Javed Akhtar, there is no hard and fast rule. I mean, filling up a survey is really a voluntarily thing. We can only strategize it, we cannot take it to a height where everyone is so serious. We cannot. Human beings are very, generally speaking, they are very informal and wild species. They don't care much, but they can pretend to care. Anonymous attendee, what are the difference between scientific research and survey research? Is scientific research also have statistics part? Scientific research is that survey research I explained, but scientific research is that you follow the norms of the scientific community. One of the norms is universalism. One of the norms is disinterestedness. So if you are following these norms, you are into scientific research. It is difficult to collect data, Asim says, in present condition by using probability sampling. What is your suggestion? Go for probability sampling, and maybe you can use Google Forms to collect data. Then Swatantra Kumar, different researchers, different opinions about the sample size. Do you think that the low or high number of sample size affect the actual result? Yes, I agree. People take only 8 to 15 sample size. Savatantra Kumar, Savatantra Kumar, I would say that 8 to 15 of sample size in qualitative studies, that's okay. You can do that. But for a quantitative survey, you need a larger number. And then you said that in case people take only 8 to 15 sample size, come on, consult the books. Social Research Methods by Newman. It's a worthy of read. Please read that book once. Maham Siddiq, if in the research the population is student, how we have to specify what kind of student? Maybe higher education student, maybe students in a business school, maybe students who are into engineering, maybe primary school students. That's why you can do that. Please, what is a sampling frame in social science research? I explained the concept. Sampling frame is from where the chunk of population, from where you will select the sample. Literature review question, sorry, I have to miss. This is about survey research. Then MDKL. First, thank you for the presentation, information, and wealth. Thank you very much. You mentioned international journal need to know why your country's research is important. Is it enough to say that the survey you use in country may be useful in other contexts? You can collect data from one country, but the problem, let's say you are trying to talk about child abuse. Now my question is child abuse only an issue in Pakistan or Sri Lanka or Bhutan, Nepal, China? No, it's a global issue. Child labor is a global issue. So present like that. Don't underestimate your study. What I'm trying to say, your context should be a contribution. Present it in this a manner that you have to bring some literature sources and you have to take it this holistic picture that the issue which you are trying to investigate is not an issue of your country, but an issue of other countries as well. So your issue has some importance. Repeat sample size in survey research. Sample size varies in survey research. If you are into qualitative surveys, sample size might be 20, might be 25, where your data will be saturated. On the other side, if you are into quantitative, the sample size could be starting from 200 up to sometimes 1000. Mushtaq Malik sir, how would you grade collecting data through MTurk? See, if you can justify, and your panelists, if it is their Qibla, this MTurk, Mushtaq sahab, if MTurk is their nucleus, then you can justify. It is acceptable all across. You will see a lot of research which is published in top tier journals of business, like Journal of Business Research, Journal of Management, Journal of Psychology. there you will find mTurk is being used by researchers. So why not to accept that? But people have their own tribes sometimes. They reject and accept. So this way, this can be a problem. If they say that no, we don't accept mTurk. Riaz Ali, love you, sir. Love you too, Riaz. Thank you. Then Prasad Veera Singh, sir, can we discuss the qualitative part of question along with the quantitative? No, better is to opt for qualitative and then to quantitative. Same way, better is to opt for quantitative and then qualitative. Aisha Siddika, hi sir, it has been fantastic. I learned a lot. Thank you. Is it ethical to ask a double barrel questions while obtaining an honest? No, it is not ethical. It is beyond ethical. I guess it is confusing the respondents. For example, if I ask that your firm takes care of your mental health and income, so these are two questions, not one. Double barrel questions should be avoided. Bakhtavar Siddiq, how to measure samples of software? Sorry, this is not our topic. Right to collect data, 5 employees, 1 manager, and consider it 5 responses. Yeah, when you are into dyadic data, the right approach is that you collect data from one manager and then maybe let's say 7 or 8 subordinates. And then you can combine the two separately. Maybe you can say at the end of the survey, 80 managers and 230 subordinates. This way it will be good. Should one avoid using convenience sampling? Yes, avoid convenience sampling. For open population, how much sample I need? How do we ensure the honesty of our survey respondent if we have? You see, this is a very important question Ize K is asking. How do we ensure the honesty of our survey respondents? We don't need to check their honesty. In fact, we just need to take some remedies and leave it to the respondents. If they are honest, it is our luck. If they are dishonest, we cannot force them to be honest. Then someone mentioned about G power. Yes, G power you can use. It is not from the higher 110, etc. It is from the Nonelli psychometric theory. So please use correct citations. Can we manage a social systematic bias in survey research? Yes, we can, Dilshani Kumari. We can manage. I shared few remedies as how we can manage that. Maruf Khalil, how much survey questionnaire collection is reliable through Google Documents? You see, Maruf, it depends the sample size because I was discussing. So it depends as how much you needed, where you would like to stop, what are your aims of study, are you using a qualitative versus quantitative? So all these things should be kept in mind before finalizing the sample size. In one evidence from each or one publication is enough for literature survey to prove link. I guess you need to make a case. Siva Ramanan, you need to make a case of it. Instead of citing 1 or 2 citations, you need to make a case of it. How to give international context? Yasodhra, are you there? I guess now the questions are being repeated again and again, the same questions.
Yes, you can give one answer for the alike questions. I hope our participants will. Some of them have already got the answers. I guess if they have repeated the question, you can pass those.
Seems like a lot of people they wanted to talk about the sampling techniques, but you know, using a convenience sampling for a quantitative survey doesn't make sense to me because you are in this way you're not being scientific. As I elaborated on an example, let's say you wanted to sample those nurses who received a training, a psychological training, but when you go to a hospital, you conveniently, based on your convenience, without following this criteria, if you will hand over this questionnaire to every nurse, you are not meeting your objectives. So this way, that is a problem. Lahiru Radhika, what are some methods that can be used to accurately measure the person's perception? Accurate manners, see, if you ask me, we are talking about survey research today. So I would say survey research is a good technique to measure the perceptions. Three things, Lahiru, you need to keep in mind. There are perceptions, there are intentions, and there are actual behaviors. Please differentiate the three: perceptions, intentions, and actual behaviors. If you are talking about actual behaviors, asking from me, I would say a different approach is needed instead of a survey. Might be an observation, might be an experiment. Okay, but if you are interested to measure the perception, survey is a good approach and has still been used. Although there are people who oppose it, but still you will find it very popular approach among researchers. Most of the time we do not have population framework. Can opt for non-probability sampling technique can we justify through transparency of the data collection and sampling procedures? Yasir Rasool, yes, you can produce an SPSS file. One, you can produce some sort of note which you shared with the organization, and they gave some sort of input to you. For, let's say, Yasir, let's say a certificate. They gave this certificate to you that, okay, Mr. Yasir Rasool collected data from, let's say, Mizan Bank, Pakistan, and we provided him a data set of, let's say, 100 bankers. So maybe these type of documents you can produce might justify, but reviewers have a different set of opinions. You can justify to editors, but reviewers have a different opinions. Saidur Rahman, what are the best ways to motivate participants to respond seriously? Maybe you can give them some sort of rewards, approach them in appropriate time with a very serious, does not mean with a serious face, but with a very formal approach you need to approach the respondents. Maham Sadiq, how many sample size we need in qualitative research? I guess in qualitative research, there is a principle called saturation principle. Please use that. Sometimes your data will be saturated after 20 interviews. Sometimes it might not saturate after 30 interviews. So it depends how you opt for it. I can elaborate further when we will be talking about the qualitative research. Logical framework, can you explain it? The logical framework. Logical framework means that A leads to B is theoretically justified. For example, if you say that abusive, if supervisor will abuse, the productivity of subordinate will go down. Now, if you have some theoretical evidence just to justify it, the framework is called a logical framework. Cross-sectional data method means that data is collected again and data is collected at one point in time. Implementing data, reduce data use. In a research sampling is so professor, how can we choose the correct sampling method? Dilshari Kumari, I spoke about, thank you, presentation, your nice comments about the presentation, because our topic is not about sampling methods and techniques. When I teach this course, this is a whole full semester that I'm teaching survey research. Okay, so I cannot elaborate on every aspect of survey in a 2 hours webinar, but I tried to provide some very important aspects which one should do. If you ask me, sampling is important, how we can choose the correct sampling method, as I elaborated, maybe you can opt for a probability sampling approach. And in probability sampling, you can use single state sampling, multi-state sampling, and then coming up to the sampling technique itself, maybe quota sampling, maybe random sampling, or some other sampling units, so techniques which you wanted to apply. You should have reason for that. And that reason should be linked to your research question. That is one another way to do it. Kadir Rahman, you said adapt the questionnaire. Adapt means that I'm making few changes into the questionnaire. Okay, maybe sometimes I am changing the context, sometimes I am changing few words which are perceived differently in my culture. adopt is an old technique, although still used in survey research. But in adoption of questionnaire, people will not make significant changes. They might make few changes, is, are, we, this, that, etc., but not a huge change. Deepika, it was a great session. Thank you very much. When a study was based on industry, there are 10 companies. Can we narrow down that? Uh, Deepika, it will depend upon how you want to do that. Sometimes, yes, it is better to narrow down an industry, right? But let's say you want to cover the whole industry, let's suppose, and as you said, there are 10 companies. So why not to collect data from all those 10 companies? You might find some differences. Maybe you can say public limited companies or private limited companies. Maybe you can say um, companies which are making a specific product versus company which are making another type of product. So this way you can bring up some sort of variation into it. Can we use non-probability sampling technique? Not recommended, Bilal Majid. Not recommended. Serious question is non-probability sampling techniques in quantitative research. They are seriously questioning. Bilal Majid, what is the difference between adapt and adopt? As I elaborated earlier, I hope you are clear. Yasir Rasul, from probability, if you do not have population framework, absolutely. How can we opt for one of the types of probability? Like in nurses example. Okay, let's say um, the norm I can follow in hospitality sector, where all the journals and the researchers, they are using a certain criteria. Maybe I can use that criteria, Yasir. This way I can justify it. Because one of the requirements of the good journals is that you need to be part of the debate. Either you have read it or you have published. So if you have read it, you need to cite that. This is one thing. On the contrary, if you read and you understood that, oh, this is a criteria the researchers who are publishing in this journal are using, maybe you can replicate that criteria for your own study. Javed Akhtar, which sampling techniques should be used instead of convenient? Of course, Javed Akhtar, convenient is a non-probability sampling. So from the basket of probability sampling, you can use either one or multiple sampling techniques. Thank you. When we have to do factor analysis in survey research, again, it is something to do with analysis. If someday, when I will, inshallah, do something on smart PLS, or let's say data analysis, or MOs, or some other softwares, I will definitely elaborate on the analysis. Not today, please. Nawaz Khan, you talked about common method bias. Can we mitigate it through collecting responses from second source? Of course, yes. Of course, yes, you are right. We can mitigate it. Different between Yasir, difference between conceptual and theoretical framework. It's very difficult to elaborate. People have their opinions. By concept, I means that what is my philosophy behind the theoretical framework? My concept is my philosophy behind the theoretical framework. This is what I look into it. Otherwise, it is a clear-cut debate in the literature. Some people say that both are same, conceptual and theoretical. Some say that no, conceptual is different, theoretical is different, and people have their own definitions when it comes to elaboration and discussion of this conceptual and theoretical framework. So as per my definition, my understanding, not definition, sorry, my understanding is that conceptual, by conceptual we mean that it's something to do with the philosophy and something to do with the theory, while theoretical framework has something to do with the logic or with the construct and their positioning. How we can, Mohsin Abdul Rahman. Mohsin, thank you. My question is how we can address ethical issues in the data collection procedures. First of all, seek ethical approval. And after that, please ensure, don't discuss with your friends even. Once you have finished up the survey, I would say don't informally even discuss. Don't discuss with them what happened, who is using what, who said what are the opinions of one person, don't discuss. This is how we can ensure. And because next time if we want to approach them, we need to do that at least. Further, sources of error during the implementation of data collection, reduce data usefulness, like sample coverage. How could we tackle it? Further, I gave full presentation over it, how to manage that. Again, just giving you just one hint over it, how we can reduce this implementation error while collecting data, is that we are approaching the right audience, the representativeness. So that's a very important point, Farba. The sample should be representative. Javed Akhtar, thank you. You are welcome, Javed. Then what is deductive approach, sir? Name is very difficult, so sorry, I think it will take me a minute to pronounce the name. Anyway, what is deductive approach? You see, there are two approaches to theory development. Deductive is an approach to theory development. If you sit back and ask yourself how I will advance theory in social science, there are two approaches. Three, in fact, abduction is another, but I will not go into that details. By abduction, I mean that I will rely on objective reality. By inductive, I mean I will rely on subjective reality. And objective reality means that something which I can see in front of me, something which is socially visible, something that can be observed with an human eye, something which can be recorded through the senses. That is using a deductive approach. Very straightforward sort of phenomena it is. Inductive is very different, very complex. Thank you, Finfil. You are welcome. Talk about the review of the language before administration. My confusion regarding is, sir, don't we need to reach or review with the content expert as well before administration? Yes, I said that when I said that pilot testing, that was also planning stage. And when I said that you need to go to a language expert and please ask him or her, request him or her to read it once, or you can go to several other researchers, right? And several other language experts. Maybe they can do it for you. This way you can minimize the chances for error. Nawaz Khan, thank you. You are welcome, Nawaz. Rashmi, thank you. You are welcome. Wakhtavar Siddiqui, thank you. You are welcome. Numan Hafiz, good evening, sir. Is it good to have 100 sample size? No. If it is quantitative, no, it's not enough. It is, we call a biased segment, a biased sample. If the size of the sample is closer to or 100, because we cannot reach to the generalizability, But if in a survey, if we are following a qualitative survey, then a sample size of 100 would be fair enough, even more than enough, because your data might saturate at 40, 30, 20, so you don't need sometimes to go to 100. Yeah, Sudra, we are done with all the questions.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Kashif. So actually, you have answered the closed question and answering section. So good insights.
Thank you.
Able to solve their knowledge and expertise to our audience today. So, and also came into the sessions and maintained the engagement during the session. So I thank you, many thanks to all of you on behalf of the organizers. And while thanking all, I'd like to mention a little about the upcoming conferences in social sciences where you can participate. So with the current situation, we have come up with an initiation to launch some of the online, fully virtual conferences. So we'll be holding on 31st of July, the International Virtual Conference on Social Sciences. And also in September, we have two other conferences, which are International Conference on Social Sciences and International Conference on Arts and Humanities, which is a hybrid type of a conference where you can attend and also you can take part online. So I'll be sharing some details with you in the comment section, the chat boxes. So you can contact the team. So there's Miss Amaya, Miss and Miss Asha for this training. If you are really interested, you'll be able to grab more information. So these are the details. So if you are really interested and would like to uh, pursue in this research career, even though there's a pandemic, you are very welcome to submit your abstracts. And also, on behalf of NOIT's online publishing platform, I'd like to share my contact details. So if you have any queries regarding that, if you are interested in publishing, you can always contact me via emails. So those are the kind of information that I wanted to share with you. And once again, a very big thank to all the participants. And after this session, you will be able to revisit the video from our official Facebook page. So you can go back and forth to grab any point that you missed. And also, you will be receiving an email regarding these links and also the letter of certification if you have actively engaged in the session. So expect those from our side, and would like to wish you a very good night. And Professor Kashif, if you like, you can say a word also.
Yeah, thank you very much. Although it was a bit tiring at the end, there were more than 90 questions I have to answer, but it was really good, very good insight. When you share, you actually learn. That's a mantra. So it is really good to get connected by your students, by your colleagues, by your friends. So really thankful to all the people who joined and thankful to all of you, especially you were like always there to assist me and also asking me as when we can have this session and things like that. So it was truly very, and you approached in a very professional manner that I really appreciate. And the way this
Thank
session is
you. Thank you
conducted,
so
I
much.
really I felt very good. And thank you to all of you. Just one message that often people are attending webinars, Yasudra, these days, and I'm following people. Sometimes they ask in doctoral support group and sometimes here and there. So just one thing, we need to make sure that we bring ourselves closer to the books and the social observations. There is no substitute to that. No substitute. So best wishes to all. I will also share my email address in case someone needs any
Yeah.
assistance further. I would happy to address. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So with that wise advice, let us conclude the session today. Good luck to all of you in your professional and academic endeavors. Yeah, a very good night to all of you. Let's meet again in another kind of a webinar. We will surely share details if we organize another one. Thank you so much and good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Yasodhara. Good night and bye to everyone. Hoy, hoy,
චන්දන
yes
වීඩියෝ එක මේ රෙකෝඩ් වුණානේ ඔයාලගේ ටික සේව් වෙනවනේ chat එකයි